You're listening to The Jeff Crilley Show on Talk Radio 1190.
Welcome back to The Jeff Crilley Show. My next guests, Terrell and Chanel Davis, they are a husband-wife power team here in Dallas, and they've got I think, a remarkable business, and I'm going to let them describe it for you. So, Chanel, why don't we start with you? How did this business begin?
Well, we met in college at the University of New Orleans. We are both native New Orleanians. We moved to Dallas to begin our careers. Terrell with the Texas State Comptroller's Office. I started working with PricewaterhouseCoopers. In about 2001, we decided that we wanted to branch off and start our own firm. And we used our background in accounting and in tax to basically start out to help companies who needed real assistance in navigating the world of sales and use tax. So in 16 years, we've gone from doing contract work with the Comptroller's Office. We used to represent the Texas State Comptroller and go out and audit companies on their behalf. We pivoted from doing government contract work to now we represent companies who are, multi-billion-dollar, Fortune 100 corporations down to middle market companies that are in the $50 million range in gross sales. So we basically come in and help them navigate, where do they owe sales tax? Are they overpaying sales tax? If they're being audited, we represent them. So we basically are the intermediary between the company and the government entity.
And I get that because I used to do the news, and now I get people on the news, and it gives you a unique insight. And so, Terrell, let's bring you into it. Sure. You probably can see some things that others in your business might not be able to see because you did work on the other side.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I think one of the biggest things we bring to the table is understanding the how auditors think and their approach to things. So typically when a client engages us to help them navigate the audit, we'll kind of anticipate the direction the auditor is going to go and help them prepare. Typically, the auditor will send them some boilerplate list, and we get with them and develop a more customized list and to properly navigate. And one of the most challenging things that occurs is you have auditors that make misinterpretations. It happens often enough. There's sometimes a big experience gap with the comptroller's office where you have guys that are pretty well seasoned, and then you have folks that have not been along very, very long. So in addition to educating the client, in some cases we end up educating the auditors on proper interpretations because they'll kind of go in with the idea that, they're looking for money. So they'll err on the side of making things taxable where we have to kind of go in and take a second look to see, hey, wait a minute, we need to look at this a little differently. And so that's kind of how this works.
So if you get a tax bill that seems large or you get a letter of audit, you really have to engage somebody like you guys because you could end up paying the government way too much money, couldn't you?
Absolutely. And, we represent companies in all 50 states and in Canada as well. But we are fortunate to be in one of the states that's the most aggressive. Right. There are, I would say Texas, California, New York, Florida are probably the most aggressive states for where sales tax is concerned.
Right.
And a lot of people look to Texas, a lot of states look to Texas to create new laws and regulations on how to tax companies. So you may be hearing a lot about, are they going to tax Amazon, and tax internet sales. And, Texas is on the forefront of making those law changes. So they need companies like us to help them navigate, whether or not, the tax assessment is legitimate. We have come into situations where they've been audited in the middle of an audit for 2 years. They've been assessed $97 million. We've been able to come in and take that down to less than under $1 million.
Oh, my goodness.
Just based on our knowledge of the sales tax laws.
How do they come up with the figures that they come up with? Are they just kind of rounding for the industry that you're in, or how they?
It kind of varies. Generally, it's based on a records review. Now, there's some interesting scenarios where we had one client who was from out of state who were doing business in Texas, mm-hmm. and they had not been reporting sales tax because it was their position that things weren't taxable. So what the state did is a means of generating audits. They'll look at what you're reporting for income tax purposes and decide, based on the nature of your business, they'll research your company and say, hey, this company is not reporting sales tax. So it sent them an extraordinary bill telling them that what they were doing was taxable. Well, they had gone through with their CPA, approached the state to say they had come up with different reasons about why they thought it wasn't taxable. And coincidentally, I had just finished dealing with a similar issue. So I knew exactly where to go with the research. I pulled it down, sent it to the auditor. She ended up having to get with her supervisor on it because in areas that she wasn't that familiar with.
Right.
And once she got with her supervisor, the phone call I got was that they decided to let it go.
I imagine that when you first take on a case and you're talking to the auditor, do you say, "I used to be you"? Is that how that works?
Actually, since we've been in the business for 16 years and we've been doing so many states,
Right.
we've established a great, reputation. A lot of supervisors know us very well, so they know that if we approach them and we disagree, they perk up and they listen. They're like, okay, give me your research. Give me your basis of why you think we're doing this wrong. So we've established a great, reputation in this industry. So that helps. That takes us so much further than probably some of our competitors because we've been doing it for so long.
That you know what you're doing and you're also fair. And that
Yes. Yes.
Let's talk about refund recovery because it sounds like some people are leaving money on the table.
Absolutely. There's a lot of money being left on the table. Companies that are manufacturers, such as restaurants, they're considered manufacturers in Texas. But your traditional manufacturer that, manufacture a widget, they are afforded several manufacturing exemptions. So we come in and we look for missed opportunities.
Right.
They may have bought a huge piece of equipment and paid sales tax on it,
Yes.
not realizing they weren't supposed to. So we can recover that money for them. And if you don't claim it, you lose it.
Wow. Is there a certain number of years in which, can you go back previous
4
years?
years. You have 4 years. So if you're filing on a monthly basis, every month that passes, that month you lose that money.
Got it.
So,
Wow.
yeah, there's a huge telecom exemption right now that we're doing a lot of work in. So there's always new laws that are being passed, new exemptions being passed, and we're on the forefront of those type of exemptions. We're looking for opportunities to help our clients.
Well, I don't want to terribly bash the government, but it sounds like to a certain extent they're sending out a bunch of these letters and saying, if most of the people pay this, then we're good.
Right.
Yes.
Is that what happened?
Yes.
That happens quite often.
That happens a lot.
Yeah.
And to be honest, when there's a downturn in the economy, we do very well because people are more likely to fight those tax bills if they're hurting and the economy is, if there's a
Right.
downturn in the economy, they can't just pay that bill.
So let's take a flower shop. Guy's running a flower shop, and he's reporting a certain amount of sales tax each year, and then he has a bad year, and so he reports less. Does the government come in and say, no, you probably sold more than you're claiming because you sold this much in previous years?
Yeah, so that's actually one of the mechanisms they use to generate audits is looking at sales fluctuations. You're reporting a significant amount, then that number drops, or as it goes up and down, and that's one of the mechanisms they use to identify areas that needs to be reviewed for compliance.
Let's talk about some mistakes that business owners make. What are some big ones?
I think a huge mistake is, you get a notification for audit and people are genuinely honest. They want to do the right thing. So they have the attitude of, hey, I have nothing to hide. Come on in. You're welcome. I'll show you everything you want to see. What do I have to hide?
Right.
That's not a good approach. You want to prepare. You want to know your business better than the auditor knows your business because they're looking for ways to charge you sales tax. They're looking for errors. I think another big mistake is that they don't prepare properly or they stick the auditor in a broom closet in an uncomfortable scenario thinking that they'll rush them through. Well, a lot of those things can make, the situation contentious and a bit worse for the taxpayer.
Right. And
so you don't want to do that.
They should be calling you first thing that they
For
do,
certain.
right?
Yes, because, and to piggyback on something Chanel said, in a lot of instances, they'll sort of use buzzword auditing. So as you're describing, as the client is describing their business to the auditor, they'll hear a word and hone in on that word and apply the meaning that typically applies as you're applying sales tax laws. And it may not necessarily have been what the client had been intending to communicate, but they'll hone in on that, dig in, and once they've dug in and spent a lot of time, it's kind of hard to get them to see that, well, that's not quite what I meant. That's not the meaning that I was intending to communicate to you.
Well, you're both very inspirational. So to talk about the early days, I mean, when you started, was it just with a few clients?
Yeah, we started actually as government contractors. The Texas State Comptroller's Office contracted out to individuals like us to represent them to audit entities. And we also did it for the city of New Orleans, Department of Revenue. We're from New Orleans, so we did the same thing for them. And we audited companies like, La Madeleine and Sally Beauty, but they had responsibility to the city to report sales tax. And we noticed when we went out to do these audits on behalf of the government that, we spent a lot of time educating the taxpayer on the law. They just did not know what they were supposed to be doing. So we were like, hey, there's an opportunity here. We need to flip it and start helping people. We are very passionate about helping business owners because this, for a lot of companies, could bankrupt them if they get a huge assessment. So we want to help companies.
Are there a lot of companies like yours, and are they staffed by former auditors?
We do have a lot of competition. A lot of our competition is Big Four. You may know Pricewaterhouse and the like. I think what makes us a little bit different is that, we're nimble. We're a smaller shop. We've been able to do so many states because we're required to by our clients. They require us to be very nimble and knowledgeable in several different facets of the law. And we're very passionate, but we're fair. We definitely want to operate from a place of integrity, and we want our work to be beyond reproach. We're never going to do anything that's going to jeopardize our clients' reputation in front of the state, because that can be detrimental to them. So we want to always put our clients' best foot forward so that the state walks away feeling good and our client gets a very favorable result.
That's awesome. Okay, what's it like working with your wife? Is it what's that like?
It's a holiday every day. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, actually, it's in the early days, we literally did work together quite a bit more in terms of working projects. And as we experienced growth, we kind of had to go in different directions and kind of assume separate responsibilities. So I really don't feel like I work with her every day now. Taking it home is a different issue, but
it's a holiday.
It's a vacation.
But no, it's sometimes hard to turn off in the evenings. But during the course of a day, I think we've kind of evolved to the point where we're not necessarily working side by side every day.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, listen, how do people get a hold of you? What's the website?
Our website is davisanddavisllc.com.
Awesome. Well, we'll have to have you back again sometime. You guys
Absolutely.
were great. Great guests.
Thank you.
All right. Coming up next, the man who is shaking up the real estate world with a new model. That's next on The Jeff Crilley Show.
More of The Jeff Crilley Show coming up.